Imagine this for a moment. You wake up in the morning, he goes about his day, maybe rushing to work, answering emails, dealing with the stress of traffic or meetings. And out of nowhere, something you said comes back to him. Not a long message, not an hour-long phone call, but 3 little words. Just 3. And suddenly he's smiling, distracted, thinking about you instead of the million things that were on his mind. That's the power of simplicity. We tend to overcomplicate things in relationships. We think we need to constantly do more, say more, give more. We convince ourselves that if we don't write long paragraphs or have deep, hours-long conversations, he'll forget about us or lose interest. But what actually leaves an imprint on someone is often the smallest moment, the fewest words, the quietest gesture. Think about the last time someone said something short, but it stayed with you. Maybe it was, "You look incredible," or "I'm proud of you," or just, "I miss you." It wasn't a speech, it was a spark. Words are like keys. Some are too big for the lock, some don't even fit, but every now and then, you find the right one. And when you do, it unlocks something inside the other person that you can't force open with effort alone. Men, just like women, carry invisible doors inside them. Behind those doors are their deepest emotions, their sense of worth, their need to feel chosen. And the right 3 words have the power to open that door in a way nothing else can. Here's the thing: men are not immune to emotion. In fact, they crave it. They just don't always admit it. And when you choose your words carefully, when you say something that pierces through all the noise of his day, he can't help but feel it deeply. He carries it with him because it's rare. Think about how much noise he hears every single day. Work demands, responsibilities, family, friends, even social media. Everyone wants something from him. But when you speak in a way that makes him feel something, instead of demanding something, you stand out. You cut through all that noise. And it doesn't take much. That's the beauty of it. The mistake so many people make is thinking they need to constantly impress, constantly prove themselves. But love, attraction, connection, they don't come from excess. They come from intention, from choosing the right 3 words at the right moment. That's what makes them echo in his mind long after you've said them. I want you to picture this like planting a seed. You don't need to dump buckets of water every single day for it to grow. You just need the right amount at the right time. A few words spoken with sincerity, with genuine emotion behind them, can plant themselves so deeply in his heart that they grow on their own. He will replay them, he'll interpret them, he'll feel them again and again. And the more he replays them, the more he connects those words to you. That's when he starts thinking about you even when you're not there. Now, here's why this matters so much. Anyone can send a long text or say something generic. Anyone can say, "Have a good day," or "Talk to you later." But not everyone can say something that actually lands. And when you do, you separate yourself from every other person in his life. You become the thought that lingers, the moment he replays in his head when he's bored in a meeting or driving home. You become the reason he smiles without even realizing it. That's how powerful simple words can be. So when I say 3 words, I don't just mean any 3 words. I mean the kind of words that carry emotional weight. The kind that show you see him, that you appreciate him, that you desire him. Because those words, the right ones, have a way of sticking. They don't just pass through his ears, they sink into his chest. And when they're spoken at the right time, with the right energy, they create a moment that he can't help but revisit again and again. What I want you to take from this is that simplicity is not weakness. Simplicity is strength. When you learn how to say less, But make every word count, you become unforgettable. And you don't have to work harder to stay on his mind. You just have to choose wisely and let those words do the work for you. Because sometimes the smallest phrase is the one he'll carry with him all day. Here's something that most people don't realize about men. On the surface, they may look strong, confident, collected, like nothing really gets to them. They play it cool. They don't always open up, and sometimes it seems like they're hard to read. But underneath all of that, men are actually wired in a very similar way to everyone else. They want to feel appreciated, they want to feel respected, and they want to feel desired. Those are the emotional triggers that stick with them. And when you learn how to speak to those triggers, you'll notice that your words don't just pass through, they stay. Think about this. Men grow up with so much pressure on their shoulders. They're told to be providers, to be strong, to always have the answers, to never show weakness. And because of that, many of them go through life without ever hearing certain things. They don't often get told that they're doing a great job, that they're inspiring, that they're admired. They don't often get that kind of validation. So when it does come, when it's said in a genuine way, it cuts through all that conditioning and lands straight in the heart. That's why the right 3 words can have such a huge impact, because they touch on something he doesn't get anywhere else. Now, here's the fascinating part. A man can be surrounded by people all day, colleagues, family, friends, but if none of those people give him that spark of emotional recognition, he can still feel completely alone. And then you come along, and in just a few words, you give him what no one else has. You make him feel like more than what he does. You make him feel like who he is matters. That's when he starts associating you with safety, with excitement, with comfort all at once. That's when he starts thinking about you when you're not there. So many people get this part wrong. They think that men only respond to attraction, to looks, to chemistry. And yes, that's part of it, but it's not what lasts. What really makes a man obsess over someone isn't just how they look, but how they make him feel. If you can make him feel strong, capable, admired, and wanted, then you're touching on the core of who he is. And those feelings are addictive. They make him want to come back for more, not because he needs validation, but because you bring out a part of him that rarely gets touched. Here's a little secret. Men want to be chosen just as much as women do. They may not say it, but they want to feel like they're the one you admire, the one you believe in, the one you light up for. And when your words communicate that, when your 3 words remind him that he's not just filling space in your life, but that he's someone you truly see, it creates an emotional bond that's very hard to break. It's the same way you might remember a time when someone made you feel truly special. It wasn't because they gave you a long list of compliments, and it wasn't because they wrote you an essay. It was probably just a moment, one phrase, one sentence that made you feel valued in a way you hadn't felt in a long time. You still remember it because of how it made you feel. And that's exactly what happens to him when you hit those emotional triggers with the right words. The beauty of this is that it doesn't take effort in the way most people imagine. You don't have to plan grand gestures or constantly try to prove yourself. It's not about overdoing it, it's about being intentional. Because when he feels respected, when he feels admired, when he feels like he inspires you or excites you, it creates a loop in his mind. He replays it over and over, not because you forced it, but because he can't help it. And here's why this is so powerful. Men are used to being needed, but they're not always used to being wanted. They're used to responsibility, but they're not always used to admiration. They're used to people relying on them, but not always used to people celebrating them. When you give him that celebration, even in the smallest form, it sticks, it becomes rare and precious. And the rarer something feels, the more valuable it becomes in his mind. That's why those 3 words matter so much. Because when they're chosen with intention, they're not just words. They're reminders that he matters to you in a way that nobody else can replicate. They trigger emotions that he can't manufacture on his own, and that he doesn't get from the world around him. And that's what makes him keep coming back in his thoughts, in his feelings, in his desire for you. Because at the end of the day, he may forget what you wore, he may forget what you texted about, but he won't forget how you made him feel. When people first hear the phrase, 3 words, their mind immediately goes to the obvious, I love you. And yes, those words are powerful, they carry weight, they mean something important. But here's the truth, those aren't the words I'm talking about. In fact, saying, I love you too early, or saying it without the right foundation, can sometimes fall flat. It can feel expected, predictable, or even rushed. The real magic isn't in repeating the same phrase everyone else uses. The real magic is in finding the 3 words that make him feel something uniquely with you. What makes words stick isn't the words themselves. It's the emotion they evoke. Anyone can say, I love you. But what makes someone play those words over in their head all day is when they feel it in a way they haven't felt it before. That's why the 3 words that really matter are different for every man, and they don't always sound like what you'd expect. They might sound like you inspire me. They might sound like so I want you. They might sound like you amaze me. It could even be as simple as I miss you, if it's said with the right tone, at the right moment. See, the reason these phrases are so powerful is that they don't just state a fact. They reveal an experience. Tuan, you inspire me tells him he makes an impact on your life. I want you shows desire, not just love, but raw attraction. You amaze me reminds him that he still surprises you, that you still see him as someone extraordinary. And when he hears that, when he feels that from you, it stays with him. It echoes. Most people underestimate how deeply men crave to feel like they matter. Not just in a logical way, but in an emotional, visceral way. He wants to know he excites you. He wants to know he impresses you. He wants to know he affects you. And when your 3 words reflect that, you don't just communicate, you connect. You create an imprint that outlasts the moment. The beauty is that it's not about being perfect with your words, it's about being real. A man doesn't remember the perfectly polished, scripted line. What he remembers is the phrase that slipped out when you were caught up in the moment. The one that carried your genuine emotion. Imagine you're looking at him. Maybe he just said something that made you laugh, or he accomplished something at work, or he walked into a room in a way that caught you off guard, and you just say, God, you amaze me. That's not a performance. That's you being in the moment, expressing something true. That's what he replays. Now, let's talk about why this matters even more than you might think. Men are constantly bombarded with feedback on what they do wrong. At work, they're critiqued. In life, they're pressured. Even in relationships, they're often told what they're not doing enough of. But how often do they hear something that makes them feel like they're more than enough? Rarely. And that's why the right 3 words become unforgettable. Because they give him something no one else gives him, the feeling of being seen, appreciated, and desired all at once. It's also about contrast. If every message he gets throughout the day is transactional, emails, responsibilities, reminders, Then when your words arrive, they stand out. You're not adding to his to-do list. You're not another demand on his time. You're the opposite. You're the relief, the spark, the one person who makes him pause, smile, and carry that feeling with him for the rest of the day. I'll give you another layer to this. The 3 words you choose can even change depending on what stage of the relationship you're in. In the early days, words that show desire and excitement light him up, because they tell him he's making an impact on you. Later, words that show admiration or inspiration remind him he's still special to you, that he hasn't lost that spark in your eyes. And even years down the line, when life gets busy and routine sets in, those small, intentional words can reignite passion in a way no grand gesture ever could. It's not about memorizing a list of phrases. It's about tuning into him and asking yourself, what do I genuinely feel in this moment that would make him light up if I said it? Then saying exactly that. That's the secret. Authenticity. Because when your 3 words are real, they're unforgettable. And if you're wondering, but won't he get used to it? Won't it lose its power if I say it too often? The answer is no, if you mean it. Words only lose their impact when they become routine and empty. But if every time you say them, they're fueled by real emotion, they'll hit just as hard as the first time. In fact, they'll grow stronger because he'll start to associate those words with your connection, your presence, your energy. So yes, there are 3 words that will make him think about you all day. But the truth is, they're not the obvious ones. They're the ones that speak to his soul, that remind him he's not just a man in your life. He's the man you admire, desire, and can't stop thinking about. And that's what keeps him coming back in his mind, long after the words have been spoken. Have you ever noticed how the exact same words can feel completely different depending on the way they're said? Someone could say, "I miss you," in a flat, distracted tone while looking at their phone, and it lands with 0 impact. But if someone looks you in the eye, their voice softens just a little. Maybe there's a pause before they say it, and you can feel their energy shift. Suddenly, those same 3 words feel alive. That's the difference tone and delivery make. It's not just about what you say, it's about how you say it. Men don't just remember the words, they remember the way those words made them feel. You've probably had moments in your own life where someone said something ordinary, but the way they said it gave you goosebumps. That's because delivery is everything. The energy behind the words, the sincerity in your voice, the look in your eyes, that's what makes the moment stick. If you whisper, "I want you," while brushing past him, that's going to feel very different than shouting it across the room while you're both distracted by something else. If you say, "You amaze me," with a genuine smile and a touch on his arm, it'll land in his chest. If you say it while scrolling through your phone or half, thinking about something else, it won't matter how beautiful the phrase is, it'll just fall flat. And here's the truth. He's not just listening to your words, he's listening to everything else. Your tone, your energy, your body language. That's what he really remembers. So many people focus only on the words. They think if they just choose the right phrase, that's enough. But the reason some people are unforgettable isn't because of their vocabulary, it's because they know how to make words feel real. They say things with presence. They slow down. They let the words land. They're not rushing. They're not distracted. They're not trying too hard. They're in the moment. And when you're in the moment, the other person feels it. That's when the simplest phrase becomes powerful. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're about to leave, and you casually throw out, "I'll miss you." That's nice, but it doesn't stick. Now imagine instead you stop, you look at him, you lean in a little, your voice drops just enough so it feels like it's meant for him and no one else. And you say, "I'm going to miss you." Same words, completely different experience. The second one doesn't just register in his ears, it registers in his chest. He'll think about that tone, that look, that energy. That's what he'll replay later when he's alone. It's the same with humor and playfulness. If you say, "Your trouble," with a teasing smile, maybe even a playful shove on his arm, it doesn't just sound like words, it feels like an inside joke, like chemistry. He'll think about the way you laughed, the way you made him feel light, the spark in your eyes. That's delivery. That's what creates memory. And let's talk about the opposite for a second. Think about the times words don't land. You've probably had someone compliment you before, but it didn't mean anything because their delivery was off. Maybe they sounded bored. Maybe they said it without looking at you. Maybe it felt like something they say to everyone. In those moments, the words are wasted. And the same applies here. If you want him to think about you all day, your delivery has to make those words feel like they belong only to him. What makes this so powerful is that it doesn't require big effort. You don't need to rehearse. You don't need to act. All it takes is presence, really being there with him in the moment. When you let yourself feel what you're saying, your tone, your eyes, your body, everything will naturally align with it. He'll feel it not because you were trying, but because you were real. The truth is, people don't remember lines. They remember moments. They remember the spark in your eyes, the warmth in your voice, the way you said something in a way that nobody else could. That's why you can say the simplest 3 words and they'll echo in his head all day long, while someone else could say the exact same thing and it gets forgotten instantly. It's not the phrase. It's the feeling. So don't underestimate the power of how you deliver those words. When you slow down, when you mean it, when you let your tone and energy carry the message, you transform ordinary words into unforgettable ones. And that's what makes him think of you long after the words have been spoken. One of the biggest mistakes people make when it comes to connection is treating it like it only belongs in grand, dramatic moments. They wait for anniversaries, birthdays, or big dates to say something meaningful. But what actually makes someone think about you all day isn't the occasional big gesture, it's the little things sprinkled throughout everyday life. It's the words that catch him off guard in the middle of a normal Tuesday. It's the way you slip something in when he least expects it. That's what lingers. Think about how routine most days can be. He wakes up, maybe grabs his coffee, heads into work, answers emails, deals with problems, comes home tired and repeats. Life can feel repetitive, predictable, and even draining. But when in the middle of all that, he sees a message from you that says, "You inspire me," or he hears you casually say, "I'm proud of you," or you lean in and whisper, "I want you." Suddenly, the entire rhythm of his day changes. You've broken the pattern. You've injected something emotional, something unexpected, something that jolts him into remembering you. And it doesn't always have to be a text or a call. It can be in person, in tiny, ordinary moments. You're sitting together on the couch, watching TV, and out of nowhere you say, "You amaze me." He's driving and you glance over and say softly, "I love how you make me feel safe." These little drops of connection aren't just words, they're reminders. They're reminders that you see him, that you value him, that he's not just another part of your routine. And because they come at random, everyday moments, they feel even more powerful. The key is weaving those 3 words, naturally into the fabric of daily life. Not forcing them, not planning them like a script, but letting them flow in a way that feels authentic. If you're walking out the door and you say, "Don't forget, you're amazing," with a smile that might stay with him the whole day. If he texts you that he's stressed about a meeting and you reply, "You've got this," it's simple, but it carries weight. It makes him feel capable, believed in, admired. Here's what happens when you do this consistently. He starts to associate you with positive emotion. Every time he sees your name on his phone or hears your voice, he doesn't just think of you. He feels the memory of how you made him feel last time. That's how attraction deepens. That's how obsession grows. Not through one big moment, but through many small ones stacked over time. What's interesting is that consistency doesn't mean predictability. If you say the exact same thing every day at the exact same time, it loses its magic. But if you sprinkle it in at unexpected moments, it keeps him on his toes. He doesn't know when you're going to say something that lights him up, but he knows you will. That anticipation alone makes him think about you. It's like waiting for the next spark. You've trained his mind to expect joy, admiration, or desire every time you show up. Think about it this way: the most addictive part of a song isn't the entire track. It's the hook, the little part that you hum later when it's stuck in your head. That's what these 3 words are like. They're the hook he keeps replaying when he's in the middle of his day, when he's sitting in a meeting, when he's driving home. But he doesn't even realize it, but you've given him something he can't shake. And because it's tied to real emotion, it doesn't feel like just words, it feels like you. Now, what makes this even more effective is when your delivery matches the environment. If you're on the phone and he's distracted, saying something quietly but sincerely might make him pause. If you're texting, sometimes 3 words dropped in the middle of an otherwise casual conversation are more powerful than a long, romantic paragraph. Why? Because it feels real. It feels effortless. It feels like you couldn't help but say it. And that's what makes it stick. There's also something powerful about saying these words when they're least expected, not just when he's looking great or achieving something big, but when he's tired, stressed, or even doubting himself. That's when the words mean the most. That's when they dig in deep. Imagine he's had a rough day and you tell him, "I believe in you." Those words won't just fade away, they'll anchor him. He'll replay them, not because they were pretty, but because they were what he needed. At the end of the day, what really matters is how you make the ordinary moments extraordinary. You don't need a stage or fireworks to make someone think about you. You just need to know how to drop the right words into the everyday flow of life in a way that feels spontaneous and true. And when you do that, he won't just think of you occasionally. He'll think of you constantly. What's really fascinating about the right 3 words is that they don't just land in the moment. They linger. They become like a song that gets stuck in his head, replaying without him even realizing it. He might be sitting in a meeting, nodding along, pretending to pay attention, but in the back of his mind, he hears your voice. He remembers the way you said it, the look in your eyes, the feeling it gave him. And suddenly, you're right there with him, even though you're nowhere near. That's the lasting effect these words create. When you say something that touches him emotionally, it doesn't fade away like a random text or casual comment. It plants itself in his memory and resurfaces again and again. And what's powerful about that is it isn't about manipulation. It's not about tricking him into thinking of you. It's about connection. It's about building a bond so strong that the words you choose naturally leave an imprint. That's why he finds himself smiling at his phone later, or lying in bed at night thinking about what you said earlier in the day. Those 3 words become a reminder of the way you make him feel, and feelings are addictive. Here's the part most people miss. Men aren't sitting around analyzing words in the same way women might. They don't always dissect every little detail, but what they do is feel. They remember the sensation your words gave them. If you said, "You inspire me," he might not break it down logically, but he'll feel a rush of pride and importance every time he replays it. If you said, "I want you," he'll feel the heat of desire all over again. If you whispered, "I'm proud of you," he'll carry that encouragement into whatever challenge he faces next. It's less about the words themselves and more about the emotional stamp they leave behind. And here's why this works so well over time. Every day he's flooded with noise. Messages, responsibilities, expectations, things to do. Most of it fades as soon as it happens. But the things that cut through all that, the rare moments of genuine connection, stick. That's why even one small phrase from you can last all day. And when you repeat this over and over, weaving those words into his life consistently, you're not just making him think about you in passing, you're becoming part of the way he experiences his day-to-day life. He starts to look forward to it, even crave it, because it changes how he feels about himself. Think about it this way: when someone makes you feel seen, desired, admired, you don't just remember them, you prioritize them. They move higher and higher up in your mind and heart because they've given you something the world rarely gives. And that's exactly what you're doing for him when you use those 3 words with presence, sincerity, and intention. You're giving him something no one else is. You're setting yourself apart. That's why he thinks of you when he wakes up, when he's at work, when he's out with friends. It's not because you demanded it, it's because you created it. The beauty of this is that it doesn't just stop at one day. When you keep creating these moments, the impact compounds. One day turns into a week turns into months. Before long, you're not just a passing thought. You're a constant presence in his mind. And when someone is a constant presence in your mind, that's when you fall for them. That's when you start to feel like you can't imagine life without them. And I want to be clear about something. This isn't about pretending. It's not about memorizing a script of perfect 3-word phrases. It's about letting yourself be honest and vulnerable in a way that resonates. Because when it's real, he feels it. And when he feels it, he holds on to it. That's what creates the lasting effect. It's not a tactic. It's truth, delivered in a way that cuts through everything else competing for his attention. The right words, said the right way, at the right moment, have a ripple effect. They don't just stay in the moment. They travel with him. They follow him into his workday, into his downtime, into his thoughts at night. And that's how you go from being someone he likes spending time with to someone he can't stop thinking about. Because at the end of the day, words fade, conversations fade. But the way you make him feel when you say those words, that's what he carries with him long after the moment is gone.